Hello, welcome back. I'm assuming you've watched part 1, so I'm not going to re-go over the rules. Let's just get right into this, because I want to get this done as soon as possible. These two videos ended up taking me a month longer than I expected to have to work on them, so I want to get this done as soon as I can so I can move on to other projects.
I dream to be the very best among the strong and brave.
Ooh, 19 Pokemon in the first section of the video. You know what that means. Lazy list time. Nidoqueen, Geodude, Ghastly, Amanite, Chinchou, Hippip, Girafarig, Corsola, Breloom, Meditite, Anorith, Dialga, Larvesta, Cobalion, Kyurem, Sandygast, Drampa, Crovenite, and Morpeko.
But masters of their Pokemon prefer to feel like slaves.
Sandshrew, Jigglypuff, Zubat, Abra, Tentacool, Magnemite, Mr. Mime, Lotad, Gibble, Frostlass, Stunfisk, Pawniard, Reshiram, Zekrom, Helioptile, Amora, Crobominable, Solgaleo, Dreepy, Palmo, and Koraidon.
I left my home, I tried to pass right through the tall, low polygrass.
Butterfree, Rattata, Clefairy, Poliwrath, Slowpoke, Steelix, Celebi, Combuskin, Aeron, Carvana, Latios, Torterra, Empoleon, Skorupi, Victini, Litwick, Delphox, Pangoro, Tyrant, and Dupiter.
As the strangest feeling in my pants came like a tidal wave.
Ekans, Dugong, Articuno, Zapdos, Skarmory, Registeel, Stunky, Excadrill, Diggersby, Carbink, Noibat, and Marshadow.
A wild bunny appears. She's readily spreading her ears.
Charmander, Charizard, Caterpie, Pidgey, Mukro, Mantine, Houndour, Kingdra, Spheal, Drifloon, Gallade, Giratina, Deerling, and Joltik. I would like to pause the video here to give a special shout out to Deerling, since it actually brings up an interesting question with me ranking Pokemon, since Deerling doesn't really have a single base form due to its gimmick being that it has a different form for each season. So in this one I kind of just picked my favorite and based off of that. In this case it was the pink one because I think it just looks the coolest. But the different forms of Deerling are all pretty close to each other, so I don't imagine the score would have been much different if I'd have picked one of the other three.
You see an antenna reflection, oh dear. This ecosystem is weird.
Okay, we finally reached a section of this video where there's a small enough number of Pokemon that I can actually go a little more in depth, though in this section we're still only going to be doing their highest and lowest scores. First up is Dragonite, whose lowest scores are 6s in both coolness and cuteness because Pudgy Boy, and his highest scores were 9s in both theming and icon ability. Then we have Croagunk, whose lowest score is a 6 in cuteness, but has a 9 in theming. Then we have Litleo, who in both coolness and icon ability has 6s, but he gets a full score of 10 in cuteness because look at the little kitty. Then we have Hawlucha with a 6 in cuteness, but a full 10 in theming because, come on, he's a wrestling bird, which is probably the only way we could ever have an actual fighting flying type. And lastly, we have Dedenne, which is a 5 in coolness, but a 10 in cuteness because, again, look at the little guy. Okay, this section actually only has a single Pokemon in it, that being Phantump. It gets a 6 in personality because it's a cute little ghost tree, which I feel like I don't see many of in media in general. It then gets 7s in both coolness and icon ability. It gets an 8 in cuteness because it looks like a little baby. I definitely wish I could have this thing as a little companion. And then finally a 10 in theming for it being a literal ghost plant.
Teach us new moves and carry us home. We always do as we're told.
3 Pokemon in this section. First up is Bulbasaur. First up is a 6 in coolness, a 7 in personality, 8s in both theming and cuteness, and finally a full 10 in icon ability, because as one of the very first starters, this is obviously probably up there in the top 10 most iconic Pokemon of all time. Then we have Paras with 5s in coolness and personality, a 6 in icon ability, with a 7 in cuteness, because I think this guy's big beady eyes make him look really cute. And finally, a 9 in theming. Then we have Hoopa, who in my opinion is one of the most underrated mythical Pokemon of all time. His lowest scores are a 7 in both icon ability and cuteness, 8s in both coolness and theming, and finally a 9 in personality.
Medication's growing bolder. They say it's in the eye of the beholder.
Okay, we've officially entered the top 5. The only Pokemon in this section is Squirtle, the last of the 3 Gen 1 starters. He gets a 5 in coolness, because unfortunately I just think a blue turtle isn't that cool, especially compared to some of his later evolutions. However, he does get an 8 in both cuteness and personality, and full 10s in both icon ability and theming.
I say it's just a fact, yeah, it's a perfect.
Okay, we have 2 Pokemon in this section, and remember when I said I was mostly going to be taking the anime portrayals into account for their actual personality? Yeah, I haven't mentioned it much in these videos before, but the 2 Pokemon in this section are where it really comes into play, because Mimikyu and Rotom, specifically in the Gen 7 anime, get so fleshed out and are some of my favorite anime characters in Pokemon. First off is Rotom, who has a 7 in cuteness. It then has 8s in both coolness and icon ability. For the coolness one, that's mostly because of its ability to possess other electronics. And then it gets 10s in both personality and theming, mostly due to the existence of Rotom decks, which I know some of you might consider an alternate form, but considering that every alternate form of Rotom is basically just base Rotom possessing something, I say we count it, since it's one of the few Pokemon who actually speaks in full English sentences in the anime. And then for theming, obviously it gets a 10 too, because it's literally a ghost bolt of lightning or something, so easy electric ghost type. Second is Mimikyu, because, oh my god, I know a lot of people who Mimikyu is their favorite part of Gen 7 overall. It gets a 6 in theming, an 8 in cuteness, a 9 in icon ability, and full 10s in both personality and coolness. If you want to learn most of my thoughts on Mimikyu, there's actually a video from my friend in the Pokemon community, Harbo Holmes, who shares a lot of my same viewpoints about why Mimikyu is such a cool Pokemon, so I'd really recommend watching his video on Mimikyu. But even with as much as I love these 2 Pokemon, there are still 2 more that rank above it.
More than a couple extra polygons.
Okay, we finally reached our 2-way tie for number 1, and the first of these 2 Pokemon is another one where the anime portrayals is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, because the first of our 2 number 1 spots is, of course, Pikachu. A character so beloved, he could genuinely probably stand up there as one of the most recognizable characters in all of fiction, because he was the main companion to the main character of the Pokemon animes up until the most recent one. Even outside of him being in, like, maybe number 1 spot of most recognizable anime characters of all time, he still does do pretty well in a lot of these scores. His lowest score was a 7 in coolness. Then he got an 8 in theming, a 9 in cuteness, which I know some of you will argue with me not, but I'm being honest, it might actually be a little red rosy cheeks that ruin it for me. I don't know, they just remind me of the fucking sister location animatronics from FNAF. But then of course, at least somewhat thanks to the anime, he gets perfect 10s in personality and icon ability. But even with him being probably the most well-known Pokemon ever, there is still one other Pokemon that, when doing this, I think overall matches Pikachu. And I might seem biased because if anyone knows me in real life, they know I'm a huge Evolution fan, but the other Pokemon who tied for first place was Umbreon. His two lowest scores were 8s in both cuteness and personality. He's probably got the strongest personality out of all the evolutions. All the evolutions are just meant to look kinda cute and cuddly, like little pet dogs you could own. But Umbreon is most of the times brooding, dark, he blends into the shadows. He just stands out among all the other evolutions. He then gets almost perfect scores of 9s in both coolness and theming, and he gets a perfect 10 in icon ability, because people want an emo dog. So because of that, I feel like Umbreon is definitely up there in like the top 3 most popular evolutions. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, my friend Harbo Holmes has been doing a lot of Pokemon content recently, and his main companion when he was playing through the Gen 7 games was actually an Umbreon, with it being, if I remember correctly, his favorite evolution too. Again, please go check out his channel. He really wants his Pokemon videos to do well, and I think they're some of the best things he's ever done. Okay, wow, these 2 videos ended up taking me way longer than I wanted to. I originally started this thinking, oh, I'm just going to be listing off numbers, so it's going to take me like 2 weeks to make, and then it somehow spiraled out into like a 2-month-long project. In fact, it's probably obvious with part 2 of this video, because I was definitely rushing through it a bit more than I was during part 1, just because I wanted to finally be able to do some other projects. So this second part definitely had a lot less polish than part 1 did. Even though my videos are still shit anyway, so polish might not be the right word. But anyways, I was originally going to do another Twisted Wonderland video next, but I found something else that I think I want to do for my next video, which will hopefully only take me a few days to make, considering I'm not going to be working with a script for it. So hopefully I'll see you guys in that video, and when I do more Pokemon rankings, because I do tend to eventually do another 200 or so Pokemon in another video, but thanks for watching this and bearing with my weird audio issues I was having for this one for some reason, and I will see you in the next video.